Have you ever felt like something's just coming for you? You don't know what it is. Or maybe you see it and you just don't know how you got there. How did this happen to me? How am I in this moment right now where this has happened to me? It could be the first time. Maybe it's happened again. Maybe it's something quick that you thought, oh, that was just a one-time or that won't happen to me. And here it is, right back on you again. Could be something at work. Could be your home life. It could be a personal issue, a health issue. All you know is in your mind, you repeatedly say, how did I get here? God, how did I get here? I've done everything right. I've tried to make the right moves in my life, but I keep ending up back here again. In early 2025, I found myself in one of those situations. And the funny thing is, in my mind, I thought it was a one-timer. It ended up being all of 2025 for me. And through the course of this sermon, I'd like to show you how, through God's refinement and his consistency in disciplining his children, I'm talking about me here, that he will continue to give you what you need, to continue to put you in situations that you might not like in order to further refine you and push you into his purpose for your life. And newsflash, that might stink. It might feel uncomfortable. But when you get through it, you'll be a whole lot tougher and be ready for what God has next for you. I'm excited to be able to walk you through this today. So my company specifically, we've been going through a lot of transitions, a lot of change management. Now, for some people, they love that. It's their job. For others, they know it just means chaos, right? A lot of big things happening, a lot of processes that were great today, gone tomorrow, and sometimes you're the recipients of those. You don't have a say in the changes. You just have to implement them because that's your job. And so with that, we had a new leader come in to our company. Now, generally, for those of you who don't know, I run our talent acquisition for our company. So all of our hiring, right? So I have to work with everybody across the enterprise, touch all the different facets. So we had a new leader come in, and his philosophy was that my particular group was to work for him, which it doesn't, and that he was going to govern my particular group. I didn't have a say in how my group operated autonomously, even though it did. I didn't have an opportunity to compromise with him. And in that moment, I was given a choice, like so many of you do whenever you face issues in your life. Do you operate within your flesh, or do you operate within the Spirit of the Lord and his peace and the wisdom that comes with that? We always have a choice. And in that moment, I let my flesh get the better of me. Now, thankful for God's grace because he can walk anything back and turn it around. But in that moment, I had a flesh flash and I realized, how did I get here? I've done everything right. I've worked so hard to establish myself. Why is it not enough? How did I get here? As I walked through 2025, things like this continued to unfold. And I'll walk you through that a bit more. But today, when we think about how this applies to our life, and specifically the Bible, I want to talk to you today from 2 Kings chapter 6. And this is a story about Elisha. Now, Elisha, while he plays a major part in this, the highlight of this scripture is it focuses more on his servant's faith, right? Or lack thereof. In a critical moment of how did I get here? So let's talk through that. One thing we need to understand though, just right before we get through, is nothing in your life is random. Do you understand that? There's no such thing as random. God has a plan and a purpose for your life. Does everybody believe that? The situations you walk into, the moments that catch you off guard, your how did I get here moments, those circumstances that make you stop and ask that, those are not outside of God's control. They fall under his providence. Now, what is providence? Providence simply means that God is actively governing the events of this world. He is not distant. He is not reacting to anything. He is ruling. His hand is guiding, protecting, and even refining, as it speaks about in Malachi, all of us through situations that we, let's be honest, we wouldn't choose those for ourselves. We don't intentionally walk ourselves. We don't want to walk ourselves into bad situations, right? Sometimes, let's be honest, it's our own fault. As we walk through this passage today, I want us to see three truths about God's providential rule. First, God's protection is unseen. Second, we are called to trust even when we don't understand. And third, when we are at our weakest, God is still fighting for us. Point number one talks about God's protection is unseen. And that's because of the providential hand of God. So We'll start from 2 Kings chapter 6. We're going to go through verses 8 to 14, then we're going to stop, talk a little bit about that. So it says, "Now the king of Aram was making war against Israel, and he consulted with his servants, saying, 'In such and such a place shall be my camp.' But the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, saying, 'Be careful that you do not pass this place.'" Now I'm going to stop for a second. It says, "But the man of God sent word to the king of Israel." We're talking about Elisha, right? Elisha is the prophet over Israel at the time, okay? Israel is actually split right now into two kingdoms. You have the kingdom of Israel on the north, the kingdom of Judea on the south. Elisha is spending more time in Israel in the north. The reason being, they're just not doing so hot. They keep falling into idolatry. They're not doing great. He's spending a lot of his time there. Judah is doing a lot better. So with that, you see the king of Aram wants to make war. But then in that moment, Elisha is sent to tell the king of Israel, "Be careful that you do not pass by this place because the Arameans are coming down there." So the king of Israel sent men to this place about which the man of God, Elisha, had told him and warned them so that they were on their guard there. And more than once or twice this happened. Now, the heart of the king of Aram was enraged over this matter, and he called his servants and said to them, "Will you not tell me which of us is for the king of Israel?" See, in this moment, he thinks there's a spy in his midst. He can't understand how he's plotting to kill this guy, and for some reason, he keeps finding out. How many of you know that God's protection is unseen? See, the king of Israel didn't even know at that time until later when Elisha notified him that he was working on his behalf, but that's God's providential hand right there working in an unseen way. So let's continue. One of the servants says to the king of Aramea, he says, "No, my lord, the king, it's Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel. He tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom." Now think about that. You want to... I know it's funny, but in his own bedroom, the words he was plotting against the kingdom of Israel were being taken and given to a man of God, a prophet named Elisha. Wow. What kind of unseen hand is working for us? That's the kind of unseen hand that's working on our behalf. So he said, this is the king of Aram. He said, "Go and see where he is so that I may send men and take him." So the king of Aram, he wants Elisha now. He's like, "Okay, that's my problem. Elisha's the issue. I'm going to go take care of that. I'm going to handle that." And it was told to him, saying, "Behold, he is in Dothan." So he sent horses and chariots and a substantial army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. Okay, so in the king of Aram's mind, he's saying, "I've got him. I've surrounded him. I know where Elisha's at. It's just a prophet." Okay, so he can hear God, but he can't take out an entire army, can he? Well, we'll see. Now, I want to quote from C.S. Lewis here. It says, "When we cannot see the way, we should trust that he sees it." What's interesting about C.S. Lewis, for many of you who might not know, okay, C.S. Lewis wrote a couple great books here. He wrote The Chronicles of Narnia. He wrote Mere Christianity. But C.S. Lewis had a big conflict with his personal faith. He fell away from the faith for a while, went down the road of atheism for a bit. Fun fact for many of you who don't know, J.R.R. Tolkien was the one who brought him back to Christ, the creator of The Lord of the Rings. It's an interesting little tidbit. You think about these guys who are Christians, they actually based all their books off the Bible. But anyways, so C.S. Lewis, he goes through this conflict with faith. He comes back, he says, when we cannot see the way, we should trust that he sees it. Now, in my own life, I felt surrounded, yet God was already working behind the scenes before I could see it. So when we talk about how to get through these kinds of situations, especially in my life, right? I was walking through a situation where somebody was coming for me. They didn't even know me. They just knew that they didn't want to. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to compromise. They didn't want to understand my position. And in my mind, all I could think of was, how did I get here? But it was in that moment that I began to recognize the fear. Now, what kind of fear? Because there are two kinds of fear, and it's important to understand what those are. So the fear that we talk about in the Bible, right, says it's the fear of the Lord. Scripture tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? The kind of fear isn't terror. This is not terror. It's awe. It's recognizing who God is, his holiness, his power, his authority, and responding with humility and obedience. That kind of fear draws us closer to God and produces wisdom in our lives. That's not the kind of fear we see in this passage, and nor was it the kind of fear that I was letting affect me. It was the other kind. The fear that we see here is the second kind, the kind that freezes you in place. When Elisha's servant woke up in the morning and he looked out over the city, he saw the Aramean army surrounding them. horses, chariots, soldiers. And his immediate response was panic. How did I get here? Now, Elisha, putting on his bathrobe, walking out, saying, not worried about it. Not a big deal. Now, his servant, losing his ever-loving mind. But Elisha is grounded in the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He knows what God is capable of. He's aware of the power of God. It doesn't matter what human eyes see. He can see beyond the physical and into the eternal. And that's what he's trying to get across to us today and to his servant during that time. Now, when Elisha's servant woke up that day, again, he cried out, "Oh no, my Lord, what shall we do?" That's the kind of fear the enemy loves to use. He wants you to panic and freak out. He wants you to start with anxiety, fear, frustration. Overwhelm your faith with so much negative fear that it convinces you that the situation in front of you is bigger than the God who stands behind you. But here's the problem with that kind of fear. It can blind you. The servant could see the army, but he couldn't yet see what God had already positioned around them. God's providential hand. We talked about the unseen hand that was working. Even before the servant woke up, even before the army went to Dothan to surround them, the unseen hand of a living God was working. The living God. Now, the enemy will want you to be frozen in fear, staring at the problem instead of trusting God. That's why Elisha prays one of the most powerful prayers in Scripture. Lord, open his eyes. How many times have you been in a situation of how did I get here, but instead of saying, Lord, open my eyes to what I can't see. Help me understand why you're putting me in this position. How do I need to grow? How do I need to move forward? What will I gain from this so I can further your kingdom? Instead, we say, there's no way I'm getting through this. I'm getting fired. This health prognosis is going to take me down. My marriage is unhealable. It doesn't matter. I don't care how many times I've gone to counseling or the doctor or talked with people at work. This is the end of it. Instead of, Lord, open my eyes. How is this situation going to further your kingdom and bring your kingdom here on earth? Come on. That's the mindset shift we're talking about. Elisha is trying to get that across to his servant. And in 2025, God was going to get that across to me one way or the other. And as you'll hear, it took more than one time for him to get that message across to me. Now, the real issue wasn't the army. The real issue was what the servant could not yet see. So what I found for me personally is remembering past victories helps me to ground myself in the faith that I know God has already proven to me. And he doesn't need to prove it, but he does. He doesn't have to prove anything to me for me to know he is sovereign and supreme, but he continually does because he loves me and he loves you. So when you remember those situations, they help to ground you. Wait a minute. It wasn't just 3 months ago that he healed me. It wasn't just 5 months ago that the bills couldn't be paid and I wasn't able to pay the mortgage, but then God showed up. What do you mean I can't remember that? What do you mean I don't think he's capable now in this moment? What do you mean that he can't do it? He just did it. Don't let fear and anxiety take over. Move forward in trust. Even if you can't see the solution, step forward knowing he is already working. It's faith. Trust is not earned, it's given because God has never failed us and we should be giving him our full trust because he's a good God. He's always been a good God. He's never let us down. Now, while we may acknowledge that God is protecting us behind the scenes, the next challenge often comes when we fully don't understand his plan. Sometimes it's hard to know why God. I mean, let's be honest, our human minds want to know why. I want to understand why I'm suffering. I want to understand it. That's not always God's intention. It's in the unknowing where your faith grows. That's where he pulls you forward. It's called a stretch project at work, right? When he's asking you to do something that maybe you're not equipped or you feel you're not equipped to do, but that thing called faith is going to pull you through it. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's a stretch project. All right. So when you don't understand those things, you move forward in faith. Now, in 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 15, it says, when the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. And he said, "Oh no, my Lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. C.S. Lewis says, hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. You're going through it for a reason. What's he preparing you for? What kingdom purpose does he have ready for you? He's just saying, I got to harden you a little bit. I got to refine you for the battle because what's coming is going to test you. It's going to test your family. Let me tell you something. The order of your life should be God, your relationship with God. If you're married, your spouse, right? My wife, that's for me. It's God, my wife, right? Then it's my family. Then it's my job. Then it's my church. That's the order for everyone that needs to know. When you step into God's calling, it's going to test all of those things. Okay, so that's why God's at the top. So if God's not where he needs to be in the order of your life and he wants to call you into something, it could throw off your family. It could throw off your job. It could throw off your relationship with your spouse. It could throw off a lot of things. And that's why Pastor constantly preaches about ordering your life appropriately. We have to get ready for what he's called us to do. And to do that, we have to, one, order our life properly, but then two, we have to make sure that we learn from these things. We let them harden us. Being battle refined is not a negative, it's a positive. It means the next time the enemy comes for you, you know what it is. You're not gonna let it affect you. Oftentimes when you go through the first point we mentioned, right? Which is God is moving even when he's unseen. All you remember are the things that when you remember all the things that God has done for you in your past and you say, I'm going to trust you, Lord, you feel like you're in a good spot. Pastor just talked about it. How many of us think that we got through something and then it crops up again? That's one of the interesting things about walking through a hardship or a pain is oftentimes the same kind of issue will crop up again 6 months down the road. And oftentimes you're faced with a choice of attacking it the same way or not. So what I find is when you feel like you're in a good spot, and many of you may be, the next salvo of the enemy's attacks comes, and specifically what it is it's doubt, right? Do you really trust what God says he's gonna do? He's already brought you through maybe 3 situations in your life, 5, 6, 10, but can he really bring you through another one? See, in my life, all of 2025 felt patterned around the same cycle. I would walk into a moment, and then another moment, where I couldn't see a way out. I didn't understand how I kept ending up in these situations, yet God continued to bring me through them. Now, fun fact, he would get me through every one of them. But here was the order of how I handled it. The situation would hit, I would freak out. I would have anxiety and fear. Guess who that affects? My wife, my children, my church, my ability to serve, right? And then God would get me through it and I'd go, thank you, Lord. Oh, this is fantastic. And then 2 months later, he'd do it again. And I'd say, you gotta be kidding me. How did I get here? And he kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And I couldn't figure out why. See, the enemy wanted me to have spiritual amnesia every single time I went through one of these situations. But I had to look back and say, just like before, I may not understand the why or how I'm going to get out of this, but I know I'm going to get out of it because God has already proven himself faithful. Yes, so identify the doubt. Recognize when the enemy is trying to question God's promises. Doubt is never going to stop. Do you understand? You're not going to beat something once in your life and then never have that issue again or never have an issue of doubt. Doubt will always exist. The enemy there's nothing new under the sun. Pastor preaches it all the time. The enemy's tricks are the same. He might use a different tool per se, but the enemy's tricks are generally the same. What he's working on, doubt, right? Okay, so when we think about that, doubt specifically, it fills your mind and you hear that you should have faith. But then when we experience doubt in our mind, we try to say, oh, well, God can't do it again. Well, we just walked through some of the steps earlier, right, about how we remember our past victories. Here's the thing. You might say, well, Jonathan, this is a bit repetitive, right? You're just saying to remember your past victories. The reason why I am is because once you have a victory, let's say you remember a past victory in our previous point, he's going to come at you with doubt again. It's the spiritual amnesia that he's trying to give you. That's why we reaffirm his faithfulness. Again, look back at the evidence, what he's already done in your life. Then declare trust anyway. Even without understanding the how, choose to believe that he will carry you through it again. So again, we're drilling down on the same issues here because it's the same tricks. It's fear, anxiety, then you succeed. Then he comes back again and you try to do better and you try to say, hey, I'm gonna do better this time. I'm not gonna be overwhelmed. But then you doubt. And it's going back to square one again. It's reaffirming the victories, understanding that he's always trusted. He's always taken care of you. He's always walked you through it. He's never let you go without. You've always had what you've needed. You might not have had what you wanted, but you had what you need. He's never let you down. Remembering. One of the scenes I love from, I don't know if many of you have seen it. It's called David, right? It's a great series on Amazon Prime. Love hearing about the story of David. And one of the things that I love is as he's about to go out to battle Goliath, he says, does no one remember the stories of old? Does no one remember the God that took us from Egypt, that parted the Red Sea? Have we forgotten that that's the same God we serve? Who is this person who would blaspheme the name of the living God? And he's talking about Goliath. He's calling back on past victories to try and remind the Israelites who were standing there terrified from the Philistines that the same God that led them out of Egypt is the same God who will deliver them a victory over the Philistines. Recall those past victories. Don't let doubt take you down. Don't let what you can physically see stop you from what you should eternally see. Because the eternal victory is where it starts, not the physical. So what is it? It's unseen. His hand is unseen, and you trust when you don't understand. Now, once we've chosen to trust, even without understanding, there's still a point where we reach the end of our own strength. And that's exactly when we recognize God has been fighting for us the entire time. So let's talk about his strength into weakness. So point number 3 says, God fights for us even when we are at our weakest. 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 16 through 18 says, don't be afraid, the prophet answered. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Stop right there. That's all you need. In every moment of every season, there are more of us than there are of them. It doesn't matter who's coming at you. It doesn't matter what your situation looks like physically. There is more power on the side of God than there is on the side of the enemy. And we have an entire Bible to prove it. We have an entire personal experience to prove that. He's never let us down. Elisha prayed, open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see. Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and he saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down towards him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, strike this army with blindness. So he struck them with blindness, as Elisha had asked. Corrie ten Boom says, you may never know that Jesus is all you need until Jesus is all you need. In that moment, pretty much sums it up. Jesus was all you needed. God was all they needed, right? Now, they might not have seen that at the beginning. They might not have had the trust in the beginning, but they got to it real quick. How many of us, and this isn't the right order, but how many of us get to Jesus last? We don't go to him first. We get hit with a ton of bricks, and then we walk through the fear, the anxiety, the frustration, then we take it out on our spouses and our families. We do all the things out of order, and then we finally go, oh, Jesus, help. What would have happened if we would have stopped and said, instead of saying, how did I get here? My Father has it. Or maybe Daddy's got it. I mean, look at it however you want. The point is, we want to change the narrative, flip it around to where we're using the fear of the Lord instead of the fear of the enemy. Because if we can identify the difference between the two and we can reorder our paths to show ourselves, he's always had me. He's always been there. We're going to be in a much better position to take on these challenges. Now, toward the end of 2025, I was really at my wit's end. It had been a brutal year. I was empty. And even though the Lord had continued to provide support and brought me through every difficult situation, mentally, I was exhausted from the constraints and all the trials. I kept asking, why does this keep happening? Why do I keep going through these things? I couldn't understand it. I was just fatigued. What I realized in that moment was this. The Lord was trying to teach me something deeper. And if I didn't fully rely on him and stop responding first with anxiety, fear, and frustration, he would continue to allow these issues to surface. He was teaching me to lean in on him first, not after the spiral of anxiety, but at the very first response. When God is putting us through things, we got to focus on discerning the why. You hear that in business a lot. What's your why? I'll have one-on-ones with my employees. What's your why? Why do you want to work here? As Christians, we like to ask why. Why is God putting me through this? We must focus on discerning the why. And while we may not understand the exact situation that we're walking through at that moment, he's always trying to show us something. He is refining us. He is clarifying something in us. And if we pray, seek him, and look inward, we often realize, Lord, this is what you're trying to teach me. Don't let a difficult situation go to waste. God is always refining you Just like in Malachi, he is the refiner, heating the silver until it is so purified that he can see his own reflection in the silver. God is refining you and purifying you, so much so that he won't stop until he can see his reflection in your life. That you are an image bearer of him and him alone. And he'll keep doing it because he loves his children, and he will discipline his children as much as needed because he loves us. What a good God that he's willing to come back to us and continue to help us grow and not just let us fall by the wayside when we make mistakes. Such a blessing. In late October and early November, I finally understood it. My first response needed to be, my Father has it. So I recognized the refinement, and in the trial, I asked the Lord, what are you shaping in me? I responded with reliance. Finally, after about 28 times when I didn't. Let your first response be trust. I had to let my response be trust. That was something I was learning in that moment too. And then the final one was resting in his strength. When I was at my weakest, I had to trust that he was fighting for me. But here's the kicker. If I would have let him come in first, I wouldn't have been at my weakest because he would have had it. He would have fought it for me without me trying to handle it myself. See, there's an easier way to do things. It's called God. He's got it all under control. Now, as we close today, I want you to picture that servant that was standing on the wall. And praise and worship team, if y'all can come up here as well. I want you to picture that servant standing on the wall in Dothan. He wakes up and he sees an army, and all he can think is, we're finished. From his vantage point, it was over. The enemy was bigger, the odds were impossible, the outcome looked certain, and the Assyrian army was the greatest army in the known world. The known world. There was none stronger than them at the time. But what he couldn't see was greater than what he could see. The hills were already filled with horses and chariots of fire. Heaven's army was already in position. The battle that looked overwhelming had already been accounted for by God. And this is the story of so many of our lives. We wake up to situations we didn't ask for. We walk into meetings we didn't plan for. We face attacks we didn't see coming. And we ask, how did I get here? He is all. When we feel surrounded, we feel confused, and we feel exhausted, he's already working in an unseen way. In my life, in 2025, it was full of moments where I kept saying, how did I get here? But over time, that question changed. It stopped being fear-driven and became faith-driven because I began to understand something. If I'm here, then God allowed me here. And if he allowed me here, then he is already working here. The servant needed his eyes opened. Sometimes we do too. So the next time you walk into something that feels overwhelming, instead of defaulting to your anxiety, instead of spiraling into fear and asking first, how did I get here? Say something different. Say, my Father has it. Say it when the meeting feels hostile. Say it when the diagnosis is uncertain. Say it when the attacks feel personal or when you're exhausted. My Father has this. Because the same God who revealed his hidden plans to Elijah, the same God who filled the hills with chariots of fire, the same God who struck the enemy with blindness is the same God who is your Father. And he has this, he always has, he always will, because he does have it and he has you. Always. Now, church, as the team plays, I want you to look inward into your life and ask, is there something that God needs to refine? Is there something that he's been working on with you? Is there something that you're going through right now and your message to yourself has been, how did I get here? What did I do to deserve this? I want you to decide today how you're going to respond. And if you want to change the mindset, change the fear to the fear of the Lord, change your pattern from anxiety to faith. There's an opportunity here as we sing for you to come down and let the Lord work on you, to break down those walls, to continue to move inward because your Father has it. Team.